Floki, you crazy.
Lifetime. Every night. Welcome to yet another episode of Mentors Mentality. I am Sabelo Hlongwane, otherwise known as Coach Sabza. All right, topic for today is going to be win or learn, right? But in terms of winning, I'll kind of give my perspective on what a real win is. And then in terms of learning, I believe that some people say win or learn, right? Which is the reason for the topic. However, I believe that there's a learning curve even in a win, but the mindset behind it is to stay positive so you never feel like you lost, right? There's always something to gain, as some may say. And as always, I will touch on a soccer experience, be it an actual player experience or coaching or something within that space or sphere, and how that benefited me or impacted me off the field in life in general. All right, so with that said, win or learn. General statement in that is to say it's either you win or you take a lesson from it. Okay, and as I stated, it's mainly to ensure that you have a positive outlook or mindset on a result that you get, right? So a lot of the times you lose a game or lose a situation or in a situation where you feel like you've lost and you're so down on yourself, you're negative, you're beating yourself up, you adding extra pressure with the stress level that comes with the result. And so the statement is meant to basically get you out of that rut, right? That feeling of defeat. So you start to view the situation differently. More so like, what could I have done better? What could I have fixed to get me closer to a win, or rather to get me to win? Because sometimes it's just a matter of one small detail, right? And then you learn growth in that aspect, or you win because of that one detail, right? But the struggle is in identifying that, especially when you are emotional in the moment. It's very hard to identify a positive from a negative. So it becomes a more mindset thing. But for me, I've noticed in my coaching career mainly, and the coaches, my colleagues that I work with, I've noticed a trend on when a coach wins, it's almost assumed that everything was working out or everything worked out, right? Now the result says, everything went well, or it's a good result, but I don't believe that it necessarily means that everything went well, because some games you get lucky, right? Some games you win them, but they're very tight when they shouldn't have been, right? And then some games you win outright. However, even in those outright wins, I still feel like there are things that could have been done better, right? Because we're never perfect. We can always be, better. However, there are moments where, you have what they consider a blowout game where everything works out. But in those games, even then, it's usually a result of, not always, but usually a result of the opposition not being at your level, right? So the best times where you could feel like everything went well is if you're up against a very strong opposition, and they're performing well, you're performing well, but things work out for you and not for them, and mainly because of, a slight detail difference on using soccer. I'd say you may have defended better than they did. You may have scored or created goal opportunities better than they did. And as a result, you win in that day, right? But even those games are usually close games. Because if you blow out a good opposition, it just means it wasn't their day, right? So In learning, though, I think there's a lot of detail in learning because for me, in soccer, I've heard this term used a lot. Experience is the best teacher, but experience counts, is what they say in soccer. And outside of soccer, it's experience is the best teacher, right? And so, experience counts is how or meant to help you understand how to deal with moments of adversity. So let's say you're in a situation, or rather, let's stick to sports, and you're in a game, right? And the opposition scores early in the game, and so if you are not strong-minded, right, you break down in those moments. If you are inexperienced, you assume you're going to lose. Experienced players, on the other hand, they look at that situation and think, okay, mistakes happen, and this one happened early. It's better for it to happen early than later in the game, because later in the game, you have no time to change it or less time to change it. Early in the game, you still have a lot of time, so their mindset is still strong, so they believe we can come back from this error. However, if you are inexperienced, right, in that moment, you think, oh, we're bound to lose. And so you spend a longer period of time in the game trying to avoid a loss as opposed to trying to get a win. And so the mindset's already negative, right? But with that said, I also want to say that in learning, there are phases of learning, right? That everybody needs to understand exist regardless of what we want. And within those phases, there's repetition, okay? So alluding to the experience aspect, repetition is to ensure that you experience it, learn from it, grow. Experience it again, learn from it, and grow. And so that's supposed to be the pattern. Experience, learn, grow. Now, nothing in that says loss, right? So that's why I believe whether you win or lose, there's still always going to be those three factors within it, right? You're gonna experience it, right? You're gonna learn from it, and then you're gonna grow. Okay, so in some life situations, I would say, I've gone through quite a bit of moments where I felt, I didn't stand a chance, but my positive mindset helped me overcome it. But then I learned something from that moment that helped me later on in life, or just later on in the day or the week, right? A lot of it, I would say, respect is one thing that I picked up on a lot. So moments where I'd say communication, but communication and respect kind of align. Let's say I find myself in a situation where I don't communicate enough on a specific thing. And so over a period of time, there's a misunderstanding because of a lack of communication. And then I end up finding myself in a tougher situation than what I would have preferred. Now, in the moment, I learn, right? So I learned that in the moment, right, I'm at a loss, I'd say. But in that moment, I also choose to learn, and I think to myself, well, it's not the end of it all, but hopefully in the future, I can do better when it comes to this specific situation. And then I recognize, how can I do better? Okay, I need to communicate more details with regards to what I am needing to express or needing to state. And so in the moment, I think, okay, I found myself in a tough situation, but I avoided it because I was able to, or later on, let me say, I avoided it because I was able to use my previous lesson to counter the situation that was coming, right? So let's say the moment of confusion or miscommunication is yet to come, but I recognize it ahead of time because of my previous experience, right? So my previous experience is always going to be the clue to say, hey, you have an opportunity coming up or a situation coming up where you could be either winning or losing, or rather winning or learning, right? But you don't want to learn too many things in the same topic or same sphere, because it just means that you're actually not learning, right? Or you're not paying attention to the things that matter. So in moments like that, I just like to, think from a reflection standpoint of, have I been in this situation before? How did I deal with it before? How can I avoid what do I foresee? And then how can I avoid what I foresee panning out negatively? Or rather, how can I direct what I foresee to pan out positively, right? So there's a lot in that moment, but it all stems from, experience. But it also stems from being strong enough to recognize moments where or situations where I am weak or bad at something and I do need to improve, right? And so I believe as you recognize, reflect, and build on these things, you will be able to win more than lose, right? And at some point, you won't have near as much to learn with that one thing. And so that's where growth comes in. And so you have matured, and so you have grown, and so you have developed, depending on what the situation may be. I think a lot of it personally, a lot of these experiences have come in, obviously, interactions with other people, be it colleagues at work, which has helped me grow a lot. In club soccer, I'd say it's either with, not necessarily club directors, mostly in dealing with parents, because I feel like expectations at the beginning of the season compared to what you deliver during the season and how the season ends always needs to be, communicated very well. But I wasn't always able to do that, right? So I learned some hard lessons from being a director at Arkansas Rush. At a point, I picked up on how things used to be done, how I want to do things, and how I see things working out in the future. But that transition in between on how things used to be done and how I want to do things needed me to suffer a few, losses, which then became lessons in order for me to transition to a better organized individual, a better forecaster on, planning ahead and ensuring that certain things are already put in place to make other aspects or areas of my role become not necessarily easier to do, but a little more structured and organized, right? And so I remember many times where I felt defeated, right? I felt like, well, this parent is displeased, or I did not deliver, because I have a very high standard of myself in all things that I do, but I didn't deliver near as well as I would have liked when it came to this specific area. And I can't just apologize and leave it at that, right? I have to take responsibility, but learn from it. And then in future, because I had that mindset, in future, as things started to play out, I could already foresee what was coming. And so I knew what I needed to do in order to avoid it, or how to better tackle it head on as opposed to avoid it, right? Because some things you can't avoid. And that was a lesson in itself, right? Minor details such as responding to emails, right? There were times where I would get overwhelmed in the things that I needed to do and maybe miss an email or two. And I remember being held accountable publicly, right? Or questioned about it, And in the moment, I felt like I was losing because I didn't have a response because I didn't recall that email. Now, other people would be confused because it's like, oh, well, he responded to all these other emails, or he responded to me. Why didn't he respond to you? And genuinely so, it would be a timing thing, right? And so I had to learn to better manage my time and delegate specific times of the day for specific tasks every day because there were things that were just repetitive, right? Emails would come every single day for just like text and phone calls. Now the issue was I had a lot of different jobs, I'd say a lot of different part-time jobs that I was doing at the time. And so trying to find a good balance of all of them and be good at all of them was the struggle, right? But the desire was there. And so there were good moments. I wasn't just bad, right? It just seems like it because I'm trying to get the point across. But there were very good moments where things were just working out great and I was excelling on all fronts. But it was those moments where I wasn't excelling that really caught me, my attention. It wasn't until later on in my career of, coaching, soccer administration, and so forth. It wasn't until later on I was able to also reflect and think, okay, well, remember when you used to struggle with this and now you don't. So recognize that, right? Learn from that. Like and how does that make you feel? And the feeling of overcoming, is almost a success feeling. And it's addictive because, or at least to me, it became addictive because it made me realize that I am growing, right? So there's a sense of growth. And all the experiences that I had, because I chose to learn from the bad ones and the good ones, I am able to mature in a better way. And thus, I was a youth coach, started my own company, and became an assistant coach, and now I'm a head coach because I chose to allow those moments of adversity to be lessons or life lessons for me that I needed to overcome, right? So more so obstacles and not just walls or stoppages or blockages. They were just mere obstacles that I needed to figure out a way through, a way around, a way over. But most of the time, it's always a way through because I take it with me, right? I learn from it and I take it with me. And so when I encounter something similar, I know how to put that on my shoulders and use it in my favor, right? I think it's very important to have this mindset of win or learn, just on the simple basis of growth in all aspects of life, work, relationships or anything like that. Because I would say even in a relationship, you would make a mistake or miscommunicate. And if you are genuinely in it to win it, right? If you want to see that through successfully, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to take the time to learn from it. In the same manner, if you do something that makes your relationship better, you're going to want to, or I would say, instead of dwelling on the moment of, well, I did this, enjoying it, and, that's that, looking for more things that could make your relationship better keeps your relationship growing in the right direction. Always recognizing where you are wrong and what you need to do to make things better in the future or what to avoid helps you not have to go through the same issues or problems over and over, right? And this mindset is something that I believe is for people who are genuinely looking for growth, are genuinely looking for success. And, as much as you got to stick to your ways, you also have to be willing to change as long as you're changing for the better, right? And that's my belief. Even in a relationship, there are people who say, well, this is how I am. It's either you accept it or, this is not going to work out. I just feel like there's so much to life that people need to be open to the point where, you can't be just one way all the time, your entire life, right? Then what's the sense of maturity? What's the sense of growth? What's the sense of development in that? You can't say, you view life the same way. That's why traveling is important, right? For some people say traveling is important because if you view life from one perspective because of one experience, it makes sense. But when you have multiple experiences, it does not make sense to view life one way still, because then that's just either ignorance or just stubbornness, right? And so it's okay to be stubborn about things that are good or hold value or are positive for you and others. I just don't think it's okay to be stubborn about things that could be negative for yourself or others, right? So a fine balance on understanding when to be and when not to be is key. But as per the topic, right, win or learn, I just felt like it was key to state, but also express that, it's for those that are willing to be successful and looking to be successful in all things in life, right? Yep, and that's all I have. As always, please feel free to comment. Let me know what you think about the topic win or learn, and maybe share a moment where you felt like you lost and later on came to realize that it was a very good lesson. Or are there things that you felt like you lost in and you haven't really reflected on and only now you're able to reflect on because of this discussion or this talk that I just had? But yeah, like, share, comment, all the things, subscribe, right? Yeah, as always, this is Coach Sabza out.
Damn, Floki, you crazy.
Lifetime. Every night.